bet you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
But you are, Britt. You are in the podcast chair.
Why are you being so loud? Oh my!
Why was I screaming?
Oh my!
I don't know. I was trying to get manic. I felt like I needed to channel my inner Bette Davis.
Here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing. Don't do that. And also, for some reason, you are so loud in my headphones.
Oh, really?
And I am so quiet.
Oh, yeah. You got the weird fucked up headphones. We need to get you these are like $20. We need to get you a good pair of headphones. You're still using our son's fucked up game headphones. I don't know. I don't play games like that. I don't understand why headphones have gotten so big.
I don't know. It's huge. Like,
yeah, Brittany's a tiny person, so like these headphones swallow her up. But
and I have them on the lowest setting, and I'm like, I need them to be smaller.
You have such a tiny head. But anyway, welcome to Night of the Horror File, a horror movie and genre film podcast where I take a horror movie and genre film and show it to my beautiful wife, Brittany, who then gives us her input. And sometimes she likes these things, and sometimes she doesn't.
Bum, bum, bum.
This month has been like an unofficial classics month. I've just been like, let's go back, watch some movies of the silver screen and just, have some more appreciation for the older classics. Mostly because when something like this happens on the show, someone said something on Twitter that pissed me off. So that's why we're doing it. I heard that these movies that we're covering movies from back then didn't go far enough. And I was like, man, you're just not watching the right movies from back in the day, because these movies really did cross some lines. I feel like maybe compared to today's movies, they're a little tame because now you can show dicks sometimes. But
right.
I feel like these movies really were more cerebral than people think they were.
Sure. I don't know.
So last
week, I don't watch enough movies to know.
You do. That's okay. But last week you watched Psycho from 1960. How was this isn't your first taste of classic films, even on this podcast. So how have they been measuring up? Because Psycho was the first movie.
Oh yeah. And then we watched Dracula, and
we've watched Dracula. We've watched Frankenstein on the show. Not as much classics as we could, but we have watched our share.
Right.
What do you think the classic movies compared to today's movies? Is there a taste difference? Do you find one is better than the other? I think honestly comparing both is stupid anyway because they're both movies. I was going to say
it's really hard to compare anyway because of the times. It's just it's so different.
Yes.
Why are you comparing?
Yes. See, okay. So you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get you to because I feel like comparing these is the dumbest thing possible. It's like comparing today's music to yesterday's music. Today's music to 70s music. You can't because there was different technologies and different things that were used to make it. So you can't. It's just all music and it's all movies. So what the fuck's wrong with you?
Now, if you prefer classics over today's movies, okay.
I will say classics have a different feel. Of course they do.
Absolutely.
Especially today's movie. When you compare today's movie, which is a more cerebral thriller, and you compare it to what we consider cerebral thrillers today, your Ari Aster movies, like Hereditary and stuff like that, there is a different feeling. I don't know. It feels more raw. These movies do. When you start getting to the more psychological elements, they feel more just brutal. I don't know how to. I don't know how to
I
Put it in
guess.
words. So, like I said, something I've heard in a few movie discussion circles is older classics just don't have they just aren't disturbing enough, and they were too held back by the time's restrictions. And usually that tells me the person speaking stopped going back in cinema history as soon as they hit 1970. Because some classic films still have the ability to get under your skin and make it crawl, really creep you out. Maybe not scare the shit out of you, but it really can creep you out, like today's movie. It's no exception, today's movie. Based on the novel by Henry Farrell, Robert Aldrich brought us a look into the seedy, gross bits of Hollywood that even today no one really wants to explore. And the film is said to succeed because of its two main stars, Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, who at the time of filming were in a bitter, famous feud. This is like among Hollywood feuds, this is the top of the top,
Oh shit.
Even if you aren't a fan of old school Hollywood like I am, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's feud is up there, man. There's a reason why there's been books made. There's been fucking shows made about their feud. It was epic. Now, even if you have a vague knowledge of movies, you've no doubt heard of these titans of the silver screen. I mean, you've heard it mentioned in pop culture. Bette Davis, Bette Davis's Eyes, that song, Mommy Dearest, the Joan
I've
with
seen that movie. Yeah.
Based on the novel or the book written by Christina Crawford, who was Joan Crawford's adopted daughter. And so that was turned into a movie and became a cult hit. And so they both continue to have this pop culture staying power, so like Marilyn Monroe, all these things. So you've heard of them,
right?
Even if you haven't.
Yeah.
Now, many forget.
Wait, did you even tell them what movie we're watching?
Oh, fuck. I got the podcast intro out of the way. I totally dropped the ball on the fucking intro of the movie.
Well, they probably know from the title of the episode.
True. I do feel that way sometimes. I'm like, they know what they're listening to. Then I'm like, well, if this is someone's first fucking thing. But okay, so what movie did we watch this week?
What happened to Baby Jane?
That's okay. Whatever happened to Baby Jane.
Whatever happened to Baby Jane. Well, that's okay, because I just was calling it Baby Jane. So
well, most people call it Baby Jane because you don't want to say whatever happened to Baby Jane over and over again.
Right. Right.
So it's a fine way to talk about the title. But like I said, many forget that these two actors were fucking powerhouses of their time, And this October actually will mark the 60th anniversary of their one and only pairing of Baby Jane. They tried again with Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte not long after, but the feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford had grown so much that it caused Crawford to quit and get fired off that picture, even though both denied that was the reason. To me, I feel like this movie is kind of the result of perfect timing. Joan and Betty's career, they were winding down after they both had been dominating movies for a while. And much of the scripts that were being sent to them, the actors felt were beneath their talent, that kind of stuff.
Oh, God.
And offers on prestige pictures were just drying up left and right, mostly because Hollywood at the time, and let's be honest now, when you get older as a female actor, the business shits you out to pasture.
Yep.
Because, think about like the 90s or so, or the early 2000s, and it's getting better now, slightly better. But you think about how many older male actors there are compared to how many older women actors there are.
Oh, yeah.
It still kind of happens. They still kind of age out, which is fucking terrible because you could have had like a 90-year-old fucking Sean Connery in a movie, but Lord help you if you're a female and age out of the business. But yeah, they just put you out to rest. You were retired by age 40. But along came Robert Aldrich, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated classic film directors. Everybody likes to talk about Hitchcock and Ford and, all these guys, but no one really talks about Aldrich as much anymore. But he was really good. He was an auteur of his time. I feel a lot of people, a few people that I've talked to disagree with me, but Aldrich had a very good standing relationship in Hollywood. He already had a few pictures under his belt, some that had him filming in Africa and England, and he'd proven himself to be a competent director, which is kind of what you wanted in the time. But now he was looking for something different. It was actually Joan Crawford who came to Aldrich after she had read the Gothic horror novel by Henry Farrell. At the time, the book was barely known. It wasn't like a bestseller or anything like that. But the subject matter of killed ambitions, impulses, shattered dreams really resonated with her. And I don't think I have to explain why,
Right.
you have an actress on her way out, and here's a book about two actors on their way out of show business, like their dreams are all shit out and stuff. So you got to admit that probably resonates with both of them at the time, I'm sure. And it was also Joan Crawford who brought the story to Bette Davis, who at the time, now I believe it's been said that Bette Davis was in talks to maybe do it already. But they were looking to have Hitchcock direct, but like Hitchcock was busy with other things. So it was Joan Crawford that brought it to Bette Davis to get her to come aboard. And Bette Davis agreed as long as she got the title character of Jane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, she was actually, Bette Davis was actually doing the production of Tennessee Williams' Night of the Iguana. And that's, that's not needed.
Night of the Iguana?
Yeah, it's not what you think. I don't believe there was iguanas involved.
Okay.
So with Jack Warner on board, Warner Brothers, the two feuding actors, and of course Robert Aldrich helming it, production began. So for less than $750,000 and shot all in a month, we got this movie. Crawford said Aldrich mostly cut this thing together in camera because they didn't have enough budget for reshoots. So and this thing is cut together great.
Oh, yeah.
For an older movie. But we got one of my absolute favorite classics in 1962. So without further ado, let's dive into Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Okay, picture it. 1917. At a theater, Baby Jane Hudson is performing. And her performance is smashing Lee's head with a tap shoe.
No one vaudeville acts, but it might have been one at one point.
Maybe so.
See the amazing Baby Jane smash a man's head with a shoe. Do you like vaudeville? Do you get into any of that stuff? Vaudeville, it's a type of performance and stuff like that. I don't know. I enjoy it. They're not around much anymore, but I think you can see them. The last vaudeville show I ever saw, and I'm talking like I'm 90 years old. I didn't see original vaudeville, but the last vaudeville styled show I ever saw was at the fair. Now, the number one topic on everybody's mind when they discuss this movie is that real life feud between its two stars. It's not a mystery. These two women hated each other. I think they hated each other. I always like to think that they hated each other personally, but professionally they did not hate each other because, they got along to do this amazing performance.
Right.
Whether they used that hate or not, I think it's on the screen. Especially after this picture, though, the feud really burnt through after this picture, really hit headlines and stuff with this picture. TV series have been made about it. Like I said, that FX series Feud, Bette and Joan, it's a great series. It's a little over dramatized.
Okay.
They lean a little too far into rumors, but it's very good. But from what I've read, that they probably didn't go into this film as hateful. You know what I mean?
Right.
They probably had some bad blood between the two because they crossed paths several times before Baby Jane. In 1935, Bette had made passes at her co-star of the film Dangerous. Well, her co-star happened to be the fiance of Joan Crawford at the time. Now, according to Franchotone, I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm sorry, you guys. He never reciprocated, but who knows? And then I think before that, 1933, Joan's divorce overshadowed Betty's starring role. And how that happened, because I'm sure people are like, how the fuck would your divorce overshadow someone's role in a movie? Well, at the time, when people were making debuts and stuff, and first time stars and the starlets are coming up and, they would make a big deal about it. You would have the studios would do fucking advertisements for see this starlet, like a new up and comer in this movie.
Yeah.
They would groom these people to get big and famous. And so they would put it out there. Well, the same day her little campaign launched.
Oh, no.
Joan announced her divorce and made a big public spectacle because Joan was already acting before Bette Davis did. Bette Davis came later at a younger age, or Bette Davis came later. You know, Joan had started acting when she was, I think, 25.
Oh, wow.
Again, you guys take this with a grain of salt. I'm just firing off the hip with these facts. So I might be wrong about a few things. But so yeah, they cross paths here and there. And but like Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, they were really similar, headstrong women. You know, when you read about them, they didn't take no shit. You know, like you
especially from each other.
Yeah, you do read about like the horrors that women had to face in the industry, especially back then.
Right.
You know, like Judy Garland is a good example. They fucking just drugged her to get her on stage and shit. Drugged her to wake up, drugged her to go to sleep. Like Hollywood killed Judy Garland.
Oh, that's really sad.
But with Bette and Joan, they had to go a different route.
Right.
Because these were they were bitches in the best possible way. They were divas. And so they had to go to other route and manipulate them. Now, Jack Warner at the time, he was famous for saying, you know, he wouldn't put a dime down for these two broads, you know, because they were on their way out. So they saw them as nothing. They just saw them as a liability for the company.
Right.
So Jack Warner wasn't completely on board. But with their feud that had already been kind of going, you know, not so strong, they saw an opportunity. So the studios kind of got with the tabloids and fanned the flames.
Oh,
you know,
no.
Stoke the fire, as you would. Because, you know, so what they would do is if like Bette said something in the dressing room to some PA or something like that, they would take that and they would put it in the tabloid.
Oh, no.
And so Joan would see that, and the next day she'd say something fucking awful. So they just started going back and forth throughout the making of this movie. It's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's kind of fucked up.
That is really fucked up.
Yeah, because these two could have been probably friends at one point. Because, like I said, they were so similar.
Right.
And you know, the reason they did that wasn't just because Hollywood's awful. They saw it as an opportunity to make this picture bigger than what they thought it was. See, Warner Brothers, Jack Warner, Robert Aldrich, to a lesser extent, all kind of thought this might sink. This didn't have any potential.
Right.
And it you know, they were completely wrong.
So this was a big movie then? Okay, I say that only because I think I've only heard a little bit. Like, I didn't know anything about this movie.
Yeah.
Have I heard the name before? Yes. Did I know anything about it? No.
This movie, aside from film buffs, I hate that word, but aside from film fans and other people, you don't hear this brought up very much anymore. This movie specifically, which is weird because it was like one of the top grossing films in 1962.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big time picture. It made a lot of money off of it. $750 or something $1,000.
Yeah.
I think it went on to make $9 million.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps, you know, that feud really did fuel the free advertising. You know?
Right.
Because at the time, you had radio and TV.
Oh, yeah. Because then they're probably like, Bette Davis, star of Baby Jane, whatever. And they're like, wait, I want to see this.
And, you know, in studios back then, they really did have to pull these tricks most of the time because they were competing with TV. You know, TV had taken off, and now you could watch Joan Crawford's old movies on TV, her old greats on TV. So why would I go see old Joan Crawford in a movie? You know? So that's where they were. That's where their heads were at. But I think they kind of just ruin these women's relationship in my own opinion. But you know, that the studios had the ability to chew you up and kill you, man. These were not good times if you were an actor, especially if you were a closet homosexual actor like Victor Buono. We'll talk about him later. But you read any stories, man. Like I said, Judy Garland, all these women had it rough, man.
That sucks so bad.
Yeah, it's the reason why I stop someone who goes into the whole Joan Crawford is a monster thing and stuff like she was a monster and stuff, because the problem was that book that Christina Crawford wrote. And I'm not on this podcast. I'm not going to suss what fucking is. We're not going to sit here and go through Christina Crawford's fucking personal life or anything like that.
Right.
I've never read the book. I've seen Mommy Dearest, but from what I hear, the movie is more dramatic than the book was.
Oh, right.
But personal life aside, Joan Crawford's fucking career has been tarnished by that. every time someone says Joan Crawford, your first thought is Mommy Dearest.
Right.
So your first thought is fucking abusive person. And it's like,
Right.
she was a really good actor. Like if you watch some of her older movies that no one talks about anymore. And so usually like when people go into that, I kind of stop them because like, Joan wasn't necessarily the monster. Hollywood was the monster. And
Right.
It killed her in more ways than physical, probably turning her into that abusive monster.
Right.
And everyone loves to talk about the drama and the dark sides of these women, but a lot of people forget that Hollywood made them that way.
Right. Okay, so 1917, at a theater, baby Jane Hudson is performing. She does tap dancing and singing, and she even has a doll that looks like her.
Man, that doll is the creepiest part of the movie. God damn.
And they put it everywhere. Anywhere they could, they
this
put
doll
the fucking
pops
doll.
up everywhere.
So after the show, Jane throws a fit in front of her fans outside saying that she makes the money, and if she wants ice cream, then she's going to get it. And Jane's sister, Blanche, basically hates Jane and the dad because the dad does whatever Jane wants because Jane's the moneymaker of the family.
Yeah, you know, at the beginning here, Aldrich is sowing the seeds of that resentment that exists between these two sisters.
Right.
Holy shit, that stuff is like a character of its own in this movie.
Oh, yes. Oh, because Jane says, we'll get Blanche some ice cream too. And he's like, Blanche was like, I don't need ice cream or something like that. And he's like, just do whatever she says, basically.
Yeah.
What?
Now, like I said, vaudeville, these vaudevillian actors, this was a thing, you know, people would do this, and this was before the time of movies. You know, you had silent pictures back then, but mostly vaudeville was like one of your main forms of entertainment. You would go see these live performance of Baby Jane, even though Letter to Daddy is the most creepiest song. And it gets creepier.
Right.
But no, like you'd see that back in the day. And many of the vaudeville acts actually took their stuff to the silver screen.
Oh,
you know, like they moved on to movies like Laurel and Hardy. A lot of your comedy acts did that.
What did you just say? Condiacs?
Comedy acts.
Comedy acts. I heard condiacs and I was like, what the fuck is that?
Well, cognac is a really good liquor.
I was like, what? Comedy acts. I was so confused for a second.
Speaking about liquor, man, we were watching this, and the amount of drinking in these old movies, dude.
Oh my god.
No one is without a drink for very long.
No.
And even when a character's like plastered as fuck, it's like, here, have another drink. That'll help you. That'll level you out. Right. See, what you want to do for the drunk is get more drunk.
Exactly.
Oh, the 50s and 60s.
So it's 1935 now. Two men are watching this movie starring Jane Hudson, and she sucks. Okay. They're like, oh God, why did we do this? Then the camera guys say that Jane needs to be sober and maybe she would be better. So apparently these movie executives have a contract with Blanche that actually now is this huge superstar.
Yeah, Blanche ended up being the big.
Right. And but every movie that she does for them, Jane gets to be in a movie too, a separate movie. Gets to be in a movie also. So they're like, we want Blanche in our movie, so we got to put Jane over here in this fucking movie.
Could you imagine if an actor could pull a deal like this? Look, you couldn't do that.
No.
Like, this wouldn't be a thing.
No. They'd be like, then you don't get to be in my movie.
That'd be like back in the day if Julia Roberts was like, okay, every picture I make, Eric Roberts has to make a picture.
Who the fuck is Eric Roberts?
Well, Eric Roberts is a lot of movies I know, but Stalked by My Doctor is the best of the lifetime, just saying. Anyway, but the clips you watch through this movie, them acting, that's actually from Bette Davis's films. One is Parachute Jumper and then Ex-Lady, both of which came out in 1933. You can also see the Crawford film Sadie McKee from 1934 used later to show Blanche's acting as well. So this is really clips of them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat because it seemed like something that, I don't know, you don't see that very often in movies. But then when do you have stunt casting in these older films? The stunt casting it happens more today.
Right.
You know, as opposed to back then.
So it's nighttime now after a like movie premiere or something, and the sisters are in the car, and we can't see their faces, but one of them gets out of the car to go open the gate to the house, and the driver runs her over.
and what a way to start your fucking movie.
Right.
Oh, shit.
So then the movie cuts to, it doesn't give a year, it just says yesterday.
I don't know why I like that so much. Like, that is a weird way to start up, because like normally, like when a picture starts like this, you start with like, the month or something, October or 4 years later or something like that, you know?
Right.
Well, we get yesterday. It's
yesterday.
Like, wait, what?
We don't know what year we're in, but it was yesterday of that year.
It's interesting.
So a woman comes home from the grocery store and her daughter is watching a Blanche Hudson movie. And they start talking, and we quickly realize they live next door to the Hudson sisters. And they say Jane is responsible for crippling Blanche in this car accident.
Right. So it's kind of well known that like this is a thing,
right?
You know, because they flesh this out more later. By the way, Crawford was a huge fan of Margaret Keane's Sad Eye paintings. Now I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Margaret Keane and her husband, who was very abusive, I believe Tim Burton made a movie about her. Actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Big Eyes, I believe is what it's called, because that was the title of one of her paintings. And she would draw these really cool figures with these giant fucking eyes. Like, you might look it up, Margaret Keane Sad Eyes. I'll let you guys look it up too, the listener here. But she became friends with the couples and the painter. And if you look in the Bates house, you'll see a few works on the walls. Like, you'll see a few of Margaret Keane's paintings. And that's because Crawford wanted to, like, kind of boost her sales and stuff because she became friends with them.
Oh, wow.
And so the lady you see, a really interesting fucking work from that lady.
Yeah.
Now the young lady you see here playing Miss Bates' daughter is the real life daughter of Bette Davis. She's credited as B.D. Merrill in this picture. And okay, so Bette Davis said that like the reason she did that was she was like, there was never an interest in BD pursuing a career or anything like that. She just wanted her daughter to have something to look back on, like and watch later on.
Oh,
Joan was the one who thought she sucked.
Of course.
And man, she really does. This poor girl is not an actor. Because, okay, the lady who's playing Miss Bates is great. When she comes in, she's doing her lines and stuff. And BD's hitting her lines and hitting her marks just fine. But, like, she's like, hello, mother. It's very robotic. But anyway, you know, when you're a big celebrity like that, I'm sure you have pull. But now, like Christina Crawford, BD would write a book about her mother, accusing her of abuse and being a monster. But unlike Christina Crawford, book, which there wasn't very many people who came out and refuted it. It was mostly, I believe it was Joan Crawford's house lady. And I think Katharine Hepburn came out in defense of Joan Crawford, but more people came out in defense of Bette Davis. So, you know, it's up for debate if that's real or not.
Right.
Like if BD, because BD went on and became like a super conservative Christian and shit like that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I believe Bette Davis's own son kind of disowned his sister over that book.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. There's a lot of tea being spilled between these two actors. But anyway, now Mommy Dearest, the book based on Crawford's alleged abuses, would go on to become a movie, you know, like I said, in 1981, starring Faye Dunaway. Now, Faye and Bette Davis actually worked on a picture together, and they did not fucking get along.
Oh, shit. So she was happy to play that.
Yes. From what I hear, though, Faye Dunaway is a very hard actor to work with. She's apparently... probably a Joan Crawford in her own right. But besides the feud, which did fuel this movie, I don't want to mince words or anything. It did help probably fuel this movie's feeling. But besides the feud, I didn't want to go into both these actors' personal lives too much. So we're not going to get a lot of that.
Okay.
Because we're talking about a movie. You know?
Right.
I want to talk about the movie. You guys can do your own research on the feud and their personal lives and stuff and more, which I think you should. these two were very interesting characters.
Right. Form your own opinion.
Yeah. And I'll use a lot of allegedly, because here's the thing about the feud and these two actors. A lot of stuff is rumors. A lot of stuff is unsubstantiated. I can't pronounce that word.
Unsubstantiated.
I couldn't fact check most of the stuff that you probably heard, But, that Mommy Dearest book, like I said, it really did tarnish Crawford's work. So what I will be doing is I'm going to be talking about Joan Crawford in a positive light for the first time. I feel like no podcast does that. I listened to a podcast where they were talking about Joan Crawford movie, and they just kept on and on about how abusive she was. And I'm like, okay, cool. But can you talk about her acting? Like, can you talk about the movie you're talking about? Yeah.
Right. So now we're with Blanche, and she's watching the same movie, and she's in a wheelchair, and Jane is there too, and she's still a drunk, and she's just mean. Everything that comes out of her mouth is just hateful.
Oh, and she's creepy. Bette Davis plays a fucking
so
amazing villain.
Oh yeah.
I think like Disney characters are based off of this fucking villain performance here, because like she comes in and immediately is just like, it's just like making fun of her sister. Yeah, because her eyes do the same thing.
Yeah.
Which Bette Davis always had these giant fucking beautiful peepers. Even into her old age, her eyes were fucking hypnotizing. But no, like she uses it to her advantage in this movie. The complete opposite of what she was known for before she played this character, which was those bedroom eyes. She was very seductive and stuff like that. In this movie, she terrifies you.
Right. You don't want to have sex with her.
No. Now, this house exterior, when we first see the Hudson Mansion, was actually located, and I think it's still there, at 172 South McCadden Place in the neighborhood of Hancock Park in Los Angeles.
Oh.
I mentioned Judy Garland earlier. This was actually, this house, this exterior, the inside was all shot on a soundstage, but the exterior was next door to the house that Judy Garland stayed in during production of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I feel like when I talk about these classic actresses and actors and stuff, I feel the most gay. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
You keep talking about Judy Garland. That's pretty gay.
I might as well have a Judy Garland t-shirt on right now. I don't know where you buy that, but I should have one. I'm so excited too. But most of this entire movie was shot either on location in Hollywood or Hollywood sound stages. The beach scene at the end, that's an interesting scene. And I would save it to the end, but I want to talk about it now. But since we're talking sound stages, that scene was partly filmed at a beach in Malibu and not in California, because apparently the beach in Malibu at the time was a little less hot because Joan Crawford was drinking heavily at the time.
Oh my God.
And so the heat was bothering her. And so she would constantly go to her trailer while they were trying to film this fucking scene, constantly going back and forth with her trailer. And Robert Aldrich would be like, what the fuck? Because she would come out with more and more makeup on, trying to cover the sweats.
Oh my God.
When really, she just should have just let it go, because she was a dying character in the scene at the end.
Right.
Like Bette Davis.
All she had to do is lay there.
Yeah, Bette Davis didn't really say much about her appearance, but she did say about her breasts, because Joan Crawford had these big old titties, and they were pointing, they were fake. And so like Bette Davis was like, because they wanted Bette Davis to collapse on top of her sister,
right?
Collapse into her chest and stuff. It was sorrow, I'm sure. But Bette Davis was like, I'm not falling on those things. I'll chip a tooth.
That's hilarious.
So like where they shot this scene, or that beach scene, was actually, like I said, that Malibu beach, but it was by Aldrich's beach house in the same area. And he also filmed the final scene of Kiss Me Deadly back in 1955 there. If you look close at the end of this movie at that beach scene, you can see Aldrich's house in the background.
Not looking that close. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm boring you to tears.
I am bored.
I'm over here like, oh my God, we're talking about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, you guys.
I'm gay. Anyway.
I feel like I need like a little like cheerleader to the side. Just this like super gay guy, just off to the side. Yes. That's right, bitch. I'm half gay. I can say that.
Oh my God. Anyway. So we're not to the beach yet.
No. That's a while from now.
Right. So the next day, the neighbor cuts flowers and takes them to Blanche. I don't think it's next day. I think it's later that day. Whatever. Anyway, Jane answers the door and says that Blanche is not fit to have visitors, and she's just so rude about it.
Oh yeah.
She's like basically saying like, why the fuck would you do that?
Bette Davis, her fucking bitch attitude in this fucking movie is so great because she does this thing that Southerners do. I don't know, like where it's like she's being nice, but she's being a shit. Like right behind that nice, that little glimpse of nice.
It sounds nice.
Yeah,
it
it's
ain't
not.
nice. Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
Anyway, so Jane has Blanche like almost like locked up in the upstairs bedroom because she's in a wheelchair. How's she gonna get down this? Anyway, she's paralyzed from the waist down, so like she ain't going down the stairs. Why? Does she? Oh, I know why. Anyway, and Jane is just so jealous of Blanche, because of her stardom and stuff. That she hates talking about the movies. She doesn't want to talk about the movies, nothing about it. And she's so mad that these movies are playing on TV now and that everybody's kind of getting riled up again, that Blanche is a movie star, blah, blah, blah.
And you can cut during these scenes and stuff, you can cut that tension and that fucking vindictiveness with a fucking knife, man.
Like a butter knife. No, not a butter knife.
Yeah, because what Aldrich does wonderfully is he gets all the exposition out of the way in those first opening scenes.
Right.
You got everything you need to know about these two characters by the time this starts, so you can let these actors do their job. Because from here on out, it's their show,
Buckle up, Buttercup. So Blanche's friend and housekeeper Elvira comes and tells Blanche that Jane has been opening and throwing away her fan mail, but Blanche is selling the house under Jane and is afraid to tell her. So basically like a tit for tat, like Jane's doing this, Blanche is doing that, and it happens all throughout the movie.
Yeah, they have this really bad codependence relationship.
Yes.
Where they just like live to fuck. Well, okay. Well, you don't know Blanche's story until the very end of the film.
Right.
But you're like, why is Blanche doing this? Like, because it seems like at every opportunity that she really does have here early on in these early scenes to just escape, because you mentioned it to me, you're like, why didn't she just scream out the fucking window?
Right.
And it's like, well, there's something there that's keeping her from really doing it. You know what I mean? And then you find out later what it's some guilt.
Right. So, Elvira wants Blanche to talk to a doctor about Jane and she's calling it her sickness, her alcoholism. She wants Jane to stay somewhere that someone can take care of her. Basically, I guess like a mental institution.
Yeah, because the loony bin. What's really great about the way that they have Joan Crawford recite these lines and stuff like this and the dialogue in this movie is it's definitely old school Hollywood talk.
Yes.
So they talk about her sickness or her, they might as well be saying she's suffering from dehydration or something like that. They use a lot of that Hollywood lingo to say alcoholism and losing her mind.
Right.
Just to avoid that, because back in the day, they never used those terms.
We couldn't talk like that about
people. No. I think when Joan actually went to the hospital for like alcoholism, like she fucking like, that's what they said. She was suffering from exhaustion.
My God.
Same with Elvis. They did that with Elvis when he went to the hospital for his pain meds and shit. They were always the king's suffering from exhaustion.
Exhausted from drinking so
right. So immediately Bette Davis has, like we said, that striking fucking look. As soon as she pops up on the screen, it's creepy as fuck. And she's like, this character is like all childlike, but at the same time older. That's what really gives it that weird levels of creepiness. Like she holds on to that doll, as we'll see later on, like it's part of her childhood. Like that's a physical manifestation of her childhood, and it's really fucking creepy. Desperately trying to hang on to youth, which many actors were at the time. It's a very reflective. When I said earlier that it's a movie kind of about Hollywood seediness as well as these two relationships and thriller. It's also about that because a lot of actors went through this thing, when they aged out. Now, this look of Baby Jane was actually Bette Davis's idea. In creating Jane, Davis said that what she had in mind, no professional makeup artist would dare put on her. One guy had even told her that if he did it, he was scared that he may not ever work again.
What did she want?
She wanted to look hideous, and if you go back and look at Bette Davis, even during 1962, she's a gorgeous fucking woman. So it would take a lot. So this guy, this professional makeup artist, did not want to be the guy who made Bette Davis ugly.
Right.
So Davis did her own makeup in this movie. And that blown out wig was actually used by Crawford in a previous MGM movie. It's just, it was so tangled and messy, because her hair is all fucked up in this movie too.
Right.
So the makeup Davis had envisioned, she said that she was like, in her mind, Jane never washes her face. She just wakes up the next day and puts another layer of makeup on.
Well, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So that's which I had a grandmother that looked just like Baby Jane. Oh. And that lady was scary as fuck, and she would lock me outside in thunderstorms.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You guys, I had firsthand experience with Baby Jane. Exactly. Remind me to find a picture of my grandmother, and I'll show it to you. She looked exactly like Baby Jane, only with a giant beehive. It was scary. Now, what's wholly depressing about Jane's looks it's what you would see on the streets of Hollywood back then. So many women would, age out of the industry, and you'd see them out of work, walking around, trying their best to hide their age in order to get roles. So they would just layer makeup on to try to get rid of wrinkles. And
that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It just looks, it looks frightening.
Yes, it does.
So you had a lot of these women walking around, and Henry Farrell, author of the book, modeled Jane after those ladies that he would see on the streets. And of course, Davis took pride in this when he visited the set, and he said, "My God, you're exactly how I envisioned Baby Jane." Aldrich and Jack Warner, they were really worried about this look, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because they were super worried about this. They thought she went way over the top. And I mean, Davis, like I said, she was always a gorgeous woman. So they just assumed, oh God, like, what is she doing? What are we doing here?
She's ruining it for us.
Yeah. But she really went out of her way to make this fucking character almost a creature.
Right. I don't know. That's what I look like every day.
Oh my God. No, you do not. Even the little details, though, if you notice on her cheek, she half-ass paints a
like
little
a heart
mole
or something, or a mole.
Yeah,
Maybe
it
that's
looks
what
like
it
it's
is.
like haphazardly applied and shit.
Yeah.
She really went into detail with this. And as time would go on, she would prove these two assholes like fucking wrong.
Right.
Not that fucking Aldrich was an asshole. I like Robert Aldrich but men back then, and today.
I was about to say just men.
Do I really have to define what I'm talking? Just men in general.
Truth.
By the way, a lot of the info I'm spewing here, like I said, take a lot with a grain of salt. It comes from Bette Davis's book and a few other books, like Joan Crawford's book. I've read that too. And a lot of little sources, and a lot of it's secondhand info.
Right.
I think it's real, because we don't have a fucking commentary by Robert Aldrich.
We should.
No. I even had the luxury, though, of talking to a film historian years ago about this movie. Like, I got into a full fucking discussion about this movie. So a lot of it comes from that person too.
Right.
So I think I could trust the film historian, but you never know. So I don't know. But what I have left out was some of the on-set feuding rumors.
Oh God.
Some of it you can't substantiate. You can't look into it. Like, it's just like all over. Like, people said it happened, but how do you know it happened? Because neither of the stars said it would happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, and a lot of that's been blown out of proportion.
Jane calls to put an alcohol order in at the alcohol store. I don't know. It's probably like fucking grocery store or something.
It's like 50s and 60s. So I guess you could just call up.
Can
you do that now?
And then they delivered it. Like,
yeah. Like hey, I need my hooch.
Okay. Before COVID, no. After COVID,
can you just get? Oh yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, they have that whole service that delivers hooch.
Hooch. Okay.
Well, I say that because, like, okay, you're thinking, you know, what she ordered in a bottle. No, she's like 6 bottles of scotch and like 2 bottles of gin or 4 bottles of gin. You're like Jesus Christ, Jane.
Yes.
Cirrhosis of the liver.
Right. Please just give me cirrhosis, please.
Yeah, I would take 1 cirrhosis. Thank you.
But the man tells her that Blanche told them not to fill orders anymore. She didn't want Jane to be drinking or whatever. So Jane pretends to be Blanche on the phone and clears that all up. So they're going to send her order later today.
Yeah, bunch of scotch and gin.
A bunch of it.
What's cool about this, though, that's ADR. Like, that's actual Joan Crawford doing the voice there when Baby Jane. Yeah. But it's seamless.
Yeah.
Man, it looks great.
Yes, it does.
It looks great. You would never know. Because now Bette Davis did try to get that voice down, but she just couldn't. I mean, but
they have different voices.
Yeah, it's amazing how they pull that off, though, because it sounds real.
Right. I thought so. So later, Jane is super drunk and thinks that she hears the doll singing. So she starts singing.
Oh.
Then she sees herself in the mirror and starts to cry. I would too. Anyway, Blanche can hear all of this going on downstairs, so she buzzes down for Jane. So Jane takes the lunch upstairs, and Blanche tells Jane that she is going to sell the house. She finally spills it to her, and Jane is pissed, and she takes the phone because she doesn't want Blanche making any more fucking phone calls without her knowing.
Yes.
Well, she can't make phone calls now because she doesn't have a fucking phone, but Jane basically tells Blanche she already knew all of this. No, the fuck you didn't.
Yeah.
No, the fuck you didn't. So then when Blanche goes to eat her lunch, I didn't put this in the other part. When Elvira's there, Jane takes the bird cage, cleans out the bird cage, and then the bird goes missing. Well, Elvira's like, no, she let that bird go on purpose. Well, actually, she killed the bird and she served it to Blanche for lunch.
Oh man, and to see these are the scenes that I point to when people are like, that movie's not a horror movie. That's not a horror. Are you kidding me? Just the basement scene alone with her singing is fucking terrifying. If that doesn't give you the chills, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, because that's scary. And then you have the scene where she pulls that thing up. It's a jump scare.
Yes.
It's an old-fashioned jump scare.
It's a fucking dead bird. What the fuck?
And what's great is, like, you see that Jane is doing all these psychological fucking warfare on her fucking sister. And this has probably been going on for years.
Oh, yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
So then Jane leaves the house. She goes for a drive or whatever. Blanche decides that she's going to try and make it down the stairs. But she gets out of the wheelchair and she stands there for a minute and she gets real scared and changes her mind. So then she goes to the typewriter in her room to write a note to the neighbors to call this doctor. So she types this note to the neighbor to call the doctor or whatever. And then she gets done typing and then she's like, oh, wait, I need to like write on there. She wrote, please don't tell my sister the contents of this letter. That comes into play in a minute.
But like, so when Jane is driving, now these older movies, they would usually use like the screens, you know, they bust the screens out, make it look like you're actually driving. You'd be on a studio set.
Yeah.
Rear projection is what they'd call it. Well, they didn't use that here because that was too expensive. So this is really Bette Davis driving in all these driving scenes with a cameraman in the backseat.
Oh, wow.
And what was funny is Bette Davis said she would just be driving for real and see the people driving on the other lane, and they would see her in this car in this makeup, and their jaws would just fucking drop.
They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, from all I've read, Bette Davis got a kick out of playing Jane and just getting a kick out of people's reactions towards this character.
Well, they've only seen her like a certain way for so long.
Yeah,
that
especially
makes a
when
lot of sense.
Yeah, you know, it was unheard of for a star to do this. And,
right.
You know.
She was a character actor. It was great. Anyway, so Jane goes down to the newspaper because she's putting it out an ad. And just as she gets home, Blanche is throwing that letter out the window to the neighbor. But Jane ends up intercepting it because the neighbor didn't even see it, because Blanche is stupid. Anyway, so then Jane goes to take Blanche some food, and they talk about selling the house again. And Blanche is basically trying to butter up Jane, and she's like, you can go with me and it'll be great, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't work.
No.
Because Blanche knows that Jane got that letter. She's really hoping she didn't, but she fucking did.
Now, rumor has it that Baby Jane may have been based, well, the character of Baby Jane may have been based partially on silent movie star Mary Miles Minter. Now, you'll be forgiven if you don't know that name. But Minter, she had a pretty good run in silent pictures, starring in like 53 of them. You know what's funny?
Shit. That's more than a good run.
It's so funny because people today are like, oh, you see Danny Trejo's career, and you're like, I'm like, man, you got to go look at some of these older actors because they were pumping out movies like left and right. But yeah, she was in like 53 of them before she was implicated by the press in the murder of William Desmond Taylor.
Oh shit. She
had an infatuation with Taylor. And she would write love letters to him and stuff like that.
Oh god.
And I believe he had directed Minter in the film Anne of Green Gables, the silent version of that. Now, she wasn't ever charged, but the accusation kind of stuck with her for decades and may have helped end her career in 1923. Even though, it's reported that she started turning down offers. So like it may have been her own undoing. Who knows? This may have really affected her psyche. But she kind of became a recluse after that, just living on her own. And I think she ended up moving in with her mom. She patched things up with her and stuff like that. And from all reports, she said she was happy with her life outside of being a star. But who knows? Who knows the real story?
Right.
Because like I think years later, it might have. Oh God, it was 1960s or something. Well, anyway, she was an old lady. And like she ended up getting like robbed and stuff, and people were like couldn't believe that she was once like this big Hollywood actress.
Oh wow!
Well, yeah, the people had no idea because she was just a frail old lady by that time.
Right.
But sad thing is though, many of the silent stars who didn't go to talkies, who didn't make that transfer.
Talkies.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just forgot that's what they were called.
I'm talking old school Hollywood here today. But most of Minter's work has been lost with time. I think out of the 53 films she did, only a dozen maybe exist, and partials, are partially like gone. So
that's sad.
That's what happened to a lot of silent stars.
So now we're with a man that looks. Hold on, I'll get to that in a second.
I loved your reaction to Victor Buono.
So he's reading the ad in the paper, and the ad says that she's looking for experienced people to work on songs and dance numbers for nightclubs.
Right.
So I guess she's trying to be famous again, whatever.
Yeah, in her own mind, man. You know what this like move reminds me of? It reminds me of these people online who like spend all this fucking money trying to get famous, and it's just like they don't really have the talent. And it's just depressing.
Yeah.
It's just like a depressing thing to watch this train wreck happen.
Oh, yeah. His mom comes home and she thinks that he would be great for the job. So she calls Jane and pretends to be his secretary. And they agree to meet later in the day or whatever.
Yeah. This is Victor Buono.
You mean Jason Segel?
He does.
Cousin.
He does bear a striking resemblance to Jason Segel.
Looks just like
he really kind of does.
1960s
like a
version
fatter
of
Jason Segel. Because Victor Buono was like 6'4", like 400 something pounds. I think he was a big old boy.
Oh wow!
Like towards the end of his life.
But so is fucking Jason Segel. He's fucking tall as shit too.
That's true. That's true. Big cock on that Jason Segel. Did you ever see Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
No, let me see.
Yeah, he got a big dick. Look it up.
My phone's
Jason
about to die.
Segel's dick.
I'm at 1%.
Yeah, I'm about to die too. But anyway, they're like, man, this was a very interesting show until they started talking about Jason Segel's dick. But Victor Buono, listeners may know him more from his villain appearances. He started early on in Hollywood playing villains and stuff. And because like even in his 20s, he looked older than he actually was.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was able to play a lot of these villains, especially on stage in these Shakespeare plays. He started out doing that. And so, yeah, you might know him more from that. And some of you might know him more as King Tut on Batman from the 1960s. Buono, sadly, he was closeted, like many gay actors back then. It's crazy because this is the second episode in a row that we're talking, closeted gay actors.
You're right.
And he had many roles up until his death at age 43. He was really young when he died. Yeah, he was 6'4" and about 400 pounds. So it said his heart gave out, so he kind of died. They called it natural causes at the time. Yeah. 43 is really young, man. But there isn't much on his gay life, in record, as would be the same with pretty much every star at the time. But it's said that he wasn't necessarily pretending to be straight either.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. He lived with a series of young men. That's mostly who he lived with. And when asked why he wasn't married, he gave the best response I've ever heard from someone telling you they are gay, but also telling you it's none of their fucking business. So he said, I've heard or read about actors being asked the immortal question, why have you never married? They answer with the immortal excuse, I just haven't found the right girl. Because I'm on the hefty side, no one's asked me yet. If they do, that's the answer I'll give. After all, it was good enough for Monty Clift or Salsa Mineo, both of which were gay men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the little punchline at the end of that. I believe Sal Mineo came out in 1972 as bisexual. Montgomery Clift stayed in the closet and I believe took his own life because of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not okay. And these closeted gay actors, lots of problems. And now it's said that Joan and he got along very well during filming. It may not be to younger people out there. When you think of gay icons nowadays, especially those in the younger crowd, they probably don't think Joan Crawford or Bette Davis, but they are. They're considered gay icons. Mostly this is from the adoption of female stars by gay men.
Right.
That's not a new phenomenon. Gay culture has tends to adopt things that aren't necessarily gay.
Right.
But they make them their own.
Right.
They have to own it. It's great. I love that aspect of gay culture. But in worshiping divas, that's goes hand in hand with being a gay dude.
Oh yeah, because gay men are divas.
Oh fuck yeah. You relate to them, and it's really not a new phenomenon. Judy Garland, Barbara Streisand, all on the list.
Yes.
I'm half gay, so I get it. It's kind of hard to explain. Now there are a few very very unsubstantiated rumors. Unsubstantiated.
No,
I can't.
no.
How do I pronounce this?
Unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated.
Some people pulled some shit out of their ass, so this might not be true. But it is said that Joan may have been bisexual.
Oh.
Joan Crawford. That's right. Now, like I said, the golden age of Hollywood, actors like Buono stayed hidden deep in the closet.
Oh, yeah.
You never found out about this until decades after or after their deaths, with personal accounts or journals and all that shit's made public. It always later in life. Now, it's been said that Crawford may have had romantic entanglements with Marilyn Monroe, Barbara Stanwyck, and Greta Garbo, among others.
Oh.
Yeah. In the book Fixers, Eddie Mannix, Howard Strickland, and the MGM Publicity Machine, that book talks about how she would even, she had appeared in a sexually explicit film that had to be destroyed by MGM to protect her career. And the book even details Crawford's love of Harlem's lesbian clubs that she frequented, which has been proven true. She did like the lesbian clubs that she went to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe she was a lesbian.
Oh, maybe. Now, Crawford was married about 4 times, but if you analyze those relationships, kind of seemed like career moves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very, well, she was always very public about her relationships, like, look at the man I'm marrying. And stuff
I married a man.
Yeah, look at this. And so, yeah, I can kind of read into her kind of thing. And even Christina Joan's adopted daughter did confirm one relationship. She was like, I knew what was going on.
Oh,
that Joan Crawford had with another woman. She was like, you just didn't talk about it. That was things you didn't talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Stay closeted. It's just something, like those little aspects of Joan's life get left off when people talk about her. Like I said, it all reverts back to Mommy Dearest and no more wire hangers and all that shit. But, but big rumors.
Big rumors,
I don't know.
Rumors. It doesn't matter now. That was a long fucking time ago.
No, yeah, she's passed now. She's dead now. We don't,
She dead.
I feel like when a lot of these people fucking die, we don't have to hate on them constantly. We can talk about the good aspects.
I agree. I agree.
Like when fucking James Woods kicks the bucket. Notorious asshole James Woods. I'm sure we'll all discuss how awesome his films were. We don't have to discuss really him.
I'm not discussing anything because I don't know who the fuck that is. Who is that? Who that?
I don't know, but
he must not be that good because I don't know who that is.
Brittany does not know who James Woods is. I've shown you 0 James Woods movies.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll get there.
Anyway, so Blanche calls for Jane and she asks for breakfast the next day. So Jane comes up and says that they are back where they started with Blanche being dependent on her. She's talking about the baby Jane days when she was making the money and she was supporting the family.
Right.
And Blanche says that if anything happens to her, then Jane wouldn't have any money because Blanche would be dead,
right? Not
making any money from her movies, and Jane's fucked basically. So take care of me or you're going to be fucked. And Jane tells Blanche that she can't have any food until lunch because she didn't eat her dinner the night before.
You didn't eat your din. Oh, God. Every line that comes out of Bette Davis's mouth gives me the fucking creeps.
You can't have any din.
And you have to wait till lunch because you didn't eat your din.
So then Elvira comes to the house to work and see Blanche or whatever. Mm-hmm. But Jane tells her that she can have the day off and she pays her $15 and she goes on. So then Jane takes Blanche her lunch and she says, we have rats in the basement, right? And she leaves. Blanche opens her thing and it's a fucking dead rat. God
damn, another old-fashioned jump scare. Again, right? Not a horror, I don't understand people who say this isn't a horror movie. This is definitely a horror movie. May not be your definition of horror.
Right. So the man from earlier, his name is Edwin, he goes to meet with Jane at the house. She says that she wants to revise her old act from when she was little. And Blanche ends up buzzing in the middle of their meeting, and Jane goes upstairs and they argue a little, and Jane slaps Blanche for trying to interfere with the meeting. Just fucking slaps. She's in a wheelchair. She fucking slaps the fuck out of her. I bet you she fucking loved that. Like the actresses. I don't know. I have heard that she really did slap her, but I don't know. That's true.
Because you read, I think there's 2 Bette Davis books that I've read. You read those books and you read Joan Crawford's books, and both of them kind of refute those claims. Oh. Like there was one rumor that when Bette Davis is lifting her and dragging her across the floor, there was a rumor that Bette Davis or Joan Crawford wore a weightlifter's belt, which is those belts that are weighted down and shit like that, or put rocks in her pocket. That's another one I've heard. And Joan was like, no, I wouldn't do that. She was like, and give Betty the chance to say that I weighed more than an elephant. Which when you say it that way,
that's
okay,
true.
I understand. But there was that rumor that she did that because Bette Davis had a bad back and she was just fucking with her. Maybe she did that. Maybe she didn't. Who fucking knows? Joan Crawford did say, she was like, I didn't make it easy on her.
Right.
These women were such fiery bitches towards each other, man. Right. It was so great.
So then Jane goes downstairs and she performs. What's the name of the song?
I've written a letter to Daddy. Oh, God.
She does the whole performance, okay? And Edwin just plays the piano to this performance.
I love Victor Buono and his reactions to everything in this movie. Like if you watch him and his reactions, it's so fucking great because he starts playing the music, and when she starts singing, his face is like, oh my God.
But he's like, that was so great. I don't think he thought it was great.
He's just seeing dollar signs. He's like, this crazy lady's going to pay me to do whatever. This is great.
Right.
There is, by the end of the movie, you kind of do feel like he might care for her a little bit. Like,
but only
just
a little bit.
I don't know. It goes back and forth with Edwin here. Like, do you think he's just after her money, or do you think maybe there's a little something there? Because he does defend her quite a bit towards his mother. And Edwin's mother sounds just like Warwick Davis in The Leprechaun. And it is very distracting to me. Because you got to admit, she sounds just like The Leprechaun.
I don't know, but she reminds me of your mother.
Who, Edwin's mother?
Yes.
Oh, totally.
That is you and your mother.
Yeah, if my mother was Warwick Davis, it'd be just the same situation.
That's not what I meant.
Are you playing the piano? Where's me gold?
Oh
like
my God.
I kept waiting for it. Like if you close your eyes on Edwin's mother, she sounds just like Warwick Davis from The Leprechaun.
No, but that is your mom. Yeah, you have qualifications for this job.
Oh my God, yes.
You would do great, honey.
Edwin's sitting there like, I am just a loser. I need to find something with money fast. This is all I need. I just need to find money.
What was it she said when we first saw her? She came from the doctor, and the doctor said that she had arthritis.
Yes.
And that she couldn't work for 6 months. I was like, I need arthritis.
I know, right? Do you get time off for arthritis? That sounds great.
I guess in 1960 something you do.
Like I'm over here like, maybe if I saw a leg off, I'll get some disability. But you are, Lee. You are in the chair.
It took me a second. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so Edwin and Jane agreed to work together, and Jane offers to drive him home. So when she's gone, Blanche goes into Jane's room because it's just right across the hall, and she's looking for food. Now at this point, she hasn't had dinner, breakfast, or lunch. She's starving to death, and she finds some chocolate. And under this chocolate box, she finds that Jane has been stealing money from her out of her checkbook and like signing her name. And stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Blanche is pissed. So she's determined to make it downstairs. Okay.
And man, dude.
Oh,
tension.
this is struggle.
Yeah,
oh my God. Because she has to slowly make it down the staircase.
There's no like electric chair or anything to get her down
right.
there. It's like
the whole time I'm like, sit down. But then I thought about it. How is she going to?
Yeah, you can't scoot. She could she could slip and break her leg. Yeah.
Well, she can't move her butt.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like she could just start falling, I guess. Right. Let's just roll down these steps. I thought she was
going to at first. I was like, oh shit, she's going to throw herself down the stairs.
My ass might. If that thing was keeping me stuck up in a room, my ass is rolling my shit out to the yard.
Go all the way back as far as you can so you can get some speed to fucking go down the stairs.
Maybe I'll get in the middle of the street and someone will see me before they run me over. Either way, the pain will stop. And I won't have to look at that.
I've written a letter for Daddy.
Baby Jane looks like a skinny version of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. It is horrifying.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, so she slowly makes her way down the staircase to try to get to the phone. Mm-hmm. She finally makes it, calls this doctor. While she's on the phone, Jane walks in.
Oh, man.
And Jane's behind her, so she can't see what's happening, but Jane can hear the conversation. Obviously, she's right there. So she hears Blanche ask the doctor to come over and basically take Jane or help Jane or whatever.
Yeah.
So Jane then calls the doctor back and tells him that he isn't needed, but she uses Blanche's voice. Mm-hmm. This is where Elvira comes in. I don't know why I said it like that. What the fuck? I'm tired. Elvira comes to the house and Jane tells her that they are moving and that she can't see Blanche and that she's fired.
And honestly, the tension throughout this movie, man, it just keeps going.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of those movies where you feel like you're sweating along with the character because the whole time you're like, really, I mean, you're rooting for Blanche up until the ending. And then man, I love that. That ending is such a gut punch, but we'll get there. But like this tension is just going.
Oh, yeah.
It just does not let up once it hits this point.
Because Elvira knows that Jane is a piece of shit.
Yes.
And she just wants to lay eyes on Blanche. She's worried about her. That's her friend, which makes sense. So Elvira walks off like she's just going to go back home or whatever. And then Jane drives off. Well, actually, Elvira was hiding around the corner. She waits for Jane to leave. She goes into the house because she has a house key. And she goes in to see Blanche, and she can't get into the room because the room is locked with a key. So she quickly realizes something's wrong. Obviously, the door is locked. So she's getting tools together to open the door. Mm-hmm. So Jane has left because she is going to the bank to cash Blanche's check.
Oh man, I love it when she gets to the bank later. She's like, "I'm Baby Jane." The guy's like, "Oh yeah, the Baby Jane." Oh yeah.
Yeah, everybody that she says that to, they're like, "Okay,
oh, okay."
Try to kill your sister,
it
but
is
okay.
Fucking depressing.
Or they don't know who she is. They're like, okay,
yeah, nobody
whatever.
knows who she is.
No,
and that's that's an important part, and that's what makes the ending even more depressing. You know,
yeah,
because it's important to know that like no one knows who she is. She has no attention anymore. She's not a star,
right?
You know, and that's the thing she's having to grip with. She just can't. It's like it broke her. Right.
She's like, I was famous, and now I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
So she drives back home, and So she drives back home, and Elvira is still trying to get Blanche out of the room. When Jane gets out of the car, the neighbor stops her. By the way, Jane hates this fucking neighbor, by the way.
God damn it, I love her. I love everything Bette Davis does in this movie.
Yeah.
Joan Crawford's fucking on fire too, but I really love the interactions Bette Davis has with the other cast members.
Yeah.
Because it's just so good. You can tell she is enjoying the fuck out of this character.
Oh, yeah. She's having too much fun.
She's taking it for a ride because her face of just pure disgust toward this lady, but she's still being nice.
Right. So they talk for a second, and she tells Jane that Elvira had just gone into the house a few minutes ago. So Jane storms in and says that she gave Blanche a sleeping pill and that she can do whatever she wants in her house because Elvira was fighting her. Or whatever.
Elvira's she's trying to get into the room, trying to check on Blanche because Blanche the buzzer's broken and she knows something's fucked up here.
Right. I tried to sum this up as much as possible. There's a lot of dialogue here.
Really, this whole movie is populated by the dialogue. And we talked about this, and I was like, if you haven't noticed, a lot of these older movies, they didn't have the bells and whistles and the CGI and all this bullshit. I mean, technically, Psycho from last week, those opening credits were the first time computers were used to make a movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I got that confused. Psycho was not the first one. That was 1955's or around 1950. The first movie to use computers would be it was Vertigo. I'm sorry, Vertigo's opening credits. I apologize.
Telling lies.
But yeah, they didn't have all the bells and whistles.
Right,
and shit.
right.
I mean, you're working with rear projections and shit like that. So really what a movie had to rely on was good acting. You couldn't get away with what you could get away with now. You can have one of these big budget blockbusters that'll still return some money and have the worst acting known to man in it.
Right.
And you're still doing just fine.
Right.
Companies can still recover. But back then it really did require someone to have a certain skill in acting. Right. And also to bring a personality to the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not knocking on the movie for having a lot of dialogue. I just have to sum it up for this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just hitting the main point here. And if I miss something, I'm sorry. But so Elvira does not take no for an answer, and she makes it into the room. What she finds is not good.
It is kind of creepy because,
this is worse than what I thought it was going to be.
It's scary looking because also she has a picture of herself behind Blanche.
I did not see that.
That's fucking, it's all lit up, all creepy. It's just the whole fucking, what the fuck? So
Blanche is tied up to her bed. Okay, so Blanche has this thing that she grabs onto so she can get
Lifts
from her
herself
bed
up,
to the wheelchair. It's just tied to that.
Yeah, it's
and she's
scary.
got tape on her mouth. So Elvira goes to help Blanche, and Jane grabs the hammer that Elvira is using, and she goes behind her and she kills her. Yeah. We don't get to see the kill.
No, you don't see the violence and stuff because they cut away and stuff. Because remember, this is a low budget picture,
right?
But what really helps this movie is also the way Aldrich lights it. Like it's lit like a gothic horror movie. Like it's lit like a haunted house. Like the inside of this house, it's pretty, it's beautiful, but it's nowhere you want to be.
Right. And it's really funny because like when Edwin comes in earlier in the movie, she like turns the lights on and then she quickly turns the lights off. Yeah. Like the lights are off during this, like in this house. Yeah,
it's like she's aware of the lighting and how it makes her look.
Right.
Like it's just more of that weird show business leftovers that she retains.
Right. So then Jane goes and gets super drunk and she's talking to herself until Edwin shows up. And she doesn't answer the door for him because she got a dead woman upstairs. Okay, let's face that. And she got to figure out what to do with the dead woman. And she just breaks down trying to figure out what she's going to do.
I kind of like those moments where she's not coming to or anything. She's not becoming sane or anything like that.
Right.
But just these moments of levity she really does have for what she's doing.
It's like she's sobering up enough to realize what she's done.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. She's like, what am I doing? You know, like, what do I do now? How do I,
I don't know what to do. Anyway, so Jane decides that she's going to dispose of Elvira's body by putting her in the car and taking her somewhere. And she almost gets caught by the neighbor, the nosy ass fucking neighbor. So they only talk for a quick second and Jane ends up driving off.
And like part of the way she acts is like she's putting on a show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the way she acts. Because like, first of all, she thinks that, we talked about, does Edwin care for her or does he just care for her as a paycheck? She literally thinks they're an item.
She thinks they're in love.
Yeah, and she does this thing where she's not going to let him in. She's like, I can't let you in. Not today, Edwin. And you might say, oh, that's just Bette Davis overacting. But that's not how she does this character throughout the movie. She does not overact.
No.
And just that part she does. And to me, that says that like Baby Jane she thinks this is all a show. She's putting on a big performance.
Right. And she loves it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she thinks she's getting away with stuff. She's just a narcissist. Let's just get down to it. She's
You're
just
like,
a fucking
big old
narcissist.
Which is crazy because we'll talk about it when the twist happens.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about that because like I said, one of the big underlining things of this movie is that codependency, that mutual assured destruction these two women have.
Oh, yeah. So Edwin goes and he tries to call Jane without answer. And he goes home and him and his mom are pissed. And she's telling him about the car accident that hurt Blanche.
And she's really upset about her missing gold. I didn't understand why Aldrich put that in the movie, but the line where she's like, where's me gold? And
that never happened.
Jane has me gold.
That never happened. Anyway, and Edwin says that Jane couldn't have tried to kill Blanche. Like, he's defending her. The mom's like, no, fuck her. This is just like you and your mom.
Man, I don't like this.
And your ex-girl. Okay, so like,
I didn't draw the similarities, but now that you're pointing it out, it's really creepy.
Because like she's like all for it or whatever.
I'm just glad my mom isn't the leprechaun. Is this lady Irish? Am I being racist?
Yes.
Oh man, she sounds like Warwick Davis.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna compare the sound waves.
Okay, do it. Anyway, so Jane is at home and she gets a call from an officer asking where Elvira is. And I guess her family had reported her missing. And Jane tells them that she was there, but she just left, like earlier or whatever.
Yeah.
She then runs up and asks Blanche what they should do because, like you said, they're codependent on each other. And she's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And she's trying to come up with a plan.
Because I think, like, even if Blanche wanted to get rid of Jane, I don't think she can. I don't think she can bring herself to do that. That's why she has such a hard time, really, I think, escaping her. Because I feel like subconsciously down beneath, she's punishing herself.
Well, yeah, and we'll find that out at the end. Yeah. So then the doorbell rings, and it's the police, and they have Edwin. He's drunk in front of her house, and so they were going to, I guess, arrest him for public detox, I guess. And but they just had him detained, but they let him go with her.
And they
the worst person to let her go with.
And Victor Buono, it's the Buono show here, man, because he is still in the scenes here. His drunk acting is pretty good. I love that because they're like, we found him wandering around your house, and he's like, they're trying to say I'm drunk.
So you know what she treats him with? Alcohol.
Like I said, the back then the cure was alcohol. You tired, alcohol. Horny, alcohol. Too drunk, alcohol. Here, have some scotch.
So
that is old time drunk too. Scotch and gin.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they sit down to have another drink, and Jane gives Edwin one of her dolls, or her doll, that he doesn't really seem to want. Then he takes his drunk ass around in the wheelchair. He's got this blanket over him. He's holding the doll. He's going around the house in this wheelchair. Woo! And this scares Jane. And she's like, fucking stop, basically. Takes the blanket off of him. And then she hears, they hear Blanche upstairs because Blanche is trying to make a noise. Mm-hmm. So he goes to check, and he is pissed when he sees Blanche all tied up or whatever. And so he runs out the door telling Jane to get away from him because basically his mom was right. Like, Jane's a piece of shit.
She's not okay.
Right. So Jane decides that she needs Blanche's help. And then she ends up taking Blanche to the beach.
And I mentioned the child, she reverts back to childhood when she gets real stressed and stuff like that. And this is definitely what a child would think to do.
Go to the beach.
Like, well, we just need to go to the beach. That's the happy place.
Right.
Like that's what she does throughout this movie. Because I know a lot of people have asked me what my reading of why Jane does the things she does in this movie. It's definitely a child.
I guess, yeah. To me,
she doesn't even even though she's trying to figure out what to do, I don't think she feels guilt for killing Elvira.
No,
I think she just reacted like a child would, and now she doesn't grasp the concept that she murdered someone.
Right? She's just like, oh fuck, mom and dad, which are the police, are gonna find out, and I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah,
that's it, but not like, oh fuck, I killed somebody.
Yeah, because when she's talking to Edwin, she still thinks she's going to become famous again.
Right.
She thinks they're still doing that.
Because she's like, I have your money right here as he's running out. Like, she still wants to pay him because she still wants to be famous. It's just not happening.
No. Earlier there's that scene where she starts kicking her way early in the movie where she catches her on the phone and stuff like that.
Oh, I guess I left that out.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's okay.
mean to.
That's okay. It's a short little scene. But she ends up kicking her. It's pretty fucking brutal, even though it's cutting away from the violence and stuff.
She kicks her a lot of times.
Yeah, there was that rumor. There was also a rumor that she actually did kick Joan in the head and caused her to have stitches. But again, I can't find any proof of that.
Right. So the next day on the radio, I guess they had found Elvira's body, and they're now looking for the sisters in connection to the murder. Because the sisters are gone, Elvira's dead. What the fuck is happening?
It's great because also later on, the cops are at the beach and stuff like that. And oh, they're over there. They're over there. It's the whole time they're building this suspense of what's going to happen next.
Right. So Blanche is just laying in the sand fucking dying, and she confesses to Jane that she was the one driving the night of the accident and that she crippled herself. Okay, I guess the story had always been that Jane was driving and that Blanche got hit by the car because Jane was so drunk she doesn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
And Blanche just went along with that, but that's not what happened. She hated Jane so much she was going to kill Jane. She didn't kill her. Jane jumped out of the way, and the car paralyzed her.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's fucked up because then you're like, oh, so she was a monster too. Like, so both of them are monster. And just that Aldrich taking the floor out from underneath you with that little twist. Right. You don't know you're like, well, fuck, who am I with on this one now?
Right.
But what's crazy about this is even though Joan Crawford, fantastic job in this fucking movie. She's on fire. She's still, throughout the movie, she's supposed to be wasting away, but she looks younger. Like each scene, she looks like she's getting younger.
Yes. So Jane does this, and this really kind of made me sad. She says, we could have been friends the whole time.
Oh, and that does like just crush you a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
And you notice like as soon as that happens, as soon as she's faced with something that's kind of more adult and like some feelings and stuff, she immediately reverts back to childhood.
Yeah.
Again.
And she goes and gets some ice cream. Well, she steals ice cream.
Yeah. Again, it's something a kid would do.
Right. So some of the officers see Jane running with these ice cream cones, by the way, and they follow her down the beach. Well, they want to know where Blanche is. And all Jane does is just start to dance in front of them. She doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She's got these ice cream cones. They're melting. She just starts dancing.
Well, because now she feels like she's a star because everybody's paying attention to her.
That's true. Because everybody on the beach is like,
yeah, everybody
what?
Knows her. So in a way, she got what she wanted at the end. And that ending is really fucking creepy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, again, for some of you who are saying this isn't a horror movie, I don't know where you've been, but this fucking scares the shit out of you. Now, when Whatever Happened to Baby Jane premiered in 1962, everyone, like I said, was waiting for it to flop. Aldrich himself even was like a little hesitant and stuff like that. And he assumed it was going to bomb, but it didn't. You know, reviews were mixed, but it went on to be one of the top grossing films of 62 and gave Bette Davis and Joan Crawford their biggest hit in over a decade. Wow. They hadn't had a hit like this. So all of a sudden they were back on top, you know. Bette Davis actually would go on to like record a song and
letters to daddy.
No, she didn't do that. You ought to look up Whatever Happened to Baby Jane by Bette Davis. It's
oh my gosh.
Bette Davis wasn't a singer, but she gave it her all. She was just having fun. I think that's the most you could see when you compare these two women together, their performances and stuff and how they were as stars. Like you could tell Bette Davis was having more fun.
Right.
She had a ball with this role and just went with it. She leaned more into it than Joan Crawford did. You know, Joan leaned into it as well, but to a lesser extent. She still felt like there was a lot of that was underneath her.
Right.
You know, now, Bette Davis found success in horror, specifically the genre that she helped spawn with her character of Baby Jane, and that's Hagsploitation. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, or you might have heard it called Psychobiddy.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, horror films or thrillers that revolve around psychotic older women. Aldrich did it again with Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte years later with Davis in the lead role. And it was supposed to also be the second pairing of Bette and Joan, but you know, we'll do that story whenever we cover Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, because I'm sure we'll cover it. I love Robert Aldrich, so we'll cover it at a later time. But there's a lot of story about that, the making of that movie too.
Oh yeah,
Olivia de Havilland ended up replacing Joan Crawford on that film. Now, also you had Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice came out years later. Curtis Harrington's Whoever Slew Auntie Roo came out.
Oh my god!
The list fucking goes on of movies that this influenced, and Hagsploitation kind of that subgenre lasted into the mid 70s and still enjoys revivals here and there. Now, Joan would go on to do more cult movies too, and she had an appearance on Night Gallery and a few television appearances and stuff. She stayed in the public eye, but she wasn't truly satisfied with that though. Like she always had that attitude that was a little underneath her, but you know, you got to make money.
Yeah.
So she took the roles she could. She even teamed with William Castle for Straight Jacket, which we talked about Straight Jacket on our William Castle episode. So go back and look at that. And it was definitely more stunt casting. You know, everybody who casted her in a movie casted her because she was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So it's something she couldn't really live down.
Right.
There was an Oscar feud between these two women.
Oh my gosh.
I love this story because this really did happen. So what happened was Bette Davis got nominated for an Oscar for her role as Baby Jane, but Joan Crawford didn't. And no one really talked about Joan Crawford. Everybody was all about Bette Davis. And so Joan felt kind of snubbed there. She was like, well, why was she getting all the glory? She actually said this. She was like, I felt like she was getting all the attention and she wouldn't even mention me. So what was I supposed to do? Just let her have it all? So what she did... What she did was the most spiteful fucking shit I've ever heard, and I love it for some reason, was she convinced another actress who was winning an Oscar, assured an Oscar that night, and she convinced her to let her accept the award. Let Joan Crawford accept the award on her behalf.
Oh
so
my
Joan
God.
comes out and accepts this fucking award. And Bette Davis did not win the Oscar.
Oh no. Here's the thing. Here's my thoughts on this, okay? Bette Davis, okay, both of them did great performances or whatever, but Bette Davis was the main character.
She really was. She
was.
did steal the spotlight in this movie.
I mean, Joan Crawford just fucking laid there. Like, I mean, she
and I'm
did
sure that's
things,
how Bette Davis
like,
felt too.
right?
You know, if you compare both of their works, like I said, they're so similar. Like I think Bette Davis and Joan Crawford are on the same level for me, you know, as actors. But definitely, yeah, I agree. I understand this movie. Yeah.
Bette Davis was the star.
yeah. Now, Joan would never have another hit like Baby Jane. Neither would Bette Davis. But again, I think Bette Davis was just fucking having fun with it. She ran with it. But Joan's last movie, which, God, I hate this. This was her last movie. Her last movie was a movie called Trog, which is about her discovering a troglodyte. It was so fucked up. I know some of you out there really enjoy how shitty Trog is, and you can find the riff tracks on it and all that stuff. But, oh God, it's just depressing to watch Joan Crawford in that movie just debase herself. She's basically acting opposite to a man in a monkey outfit.
Oh no.
Yeah. And of course, after her death in 1977, Christina Crawford's book came out. And the movie came out in 1981. Bette was still alive during this. Bette was even after Joan died, Bette Davis would not let the feud die. She is quoted as saying to Hetty, I can't remember the last name of this lady who worked for the tabloids at the time, but she quoted to her, she was like, you know, my mother always told me not to say bad things about people. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything bad.
Yeah.
You know? And she said, Joan Crawford's dead. Good. Just that was her fucking quote. Woo.
Wow.
Oh, she was. Ooh, but you know, like it's sad. Because I feel like both these women were good, sometimes fucking great actors. Yeah. You know, in their own time. And even better business women. You know, the one thing the Hollywood machine could not take away from both these women, like Joan and Bette back then, was the fact that they were mean fucking bitches and they didn't let being poor stop, you know, like they didn't let anything stop them from getting where they wanted to be. Right. You know, it's depressing. It is really depressing. You know, I could sit here and talk about how these two women were at each other's throat. I really could. And I think everyone else does that. You know, the stories of how hard they fought and how even in, like I said, in death, Bette Davis was cold. But I kind of feel like these two really did get fucked by the Hollywood machine. in the end. A lifelong feud could have been left behind before they even entered that picture, and that feud tends to overshadow how good they were. I believe, to me, even without the feud, you had two powerhouses doing this movie.
Oh, yeah.
They were gonna make it good.
Absolutely.
And you could tell, like, I don't know if there was a beforehand conversation between the two where they were like, whatever we have between us, let's make a good movie.
Right.
Because even Bette later on, I think it was in an interview with Bryant Gumbel in the 80s, but she said, Joan was a professional. She was like, all remarks and stuff I've ever said aside, she was a professional. And she said her lines. She knew her lines. She showed up on time and she did the job. So you could tell they probably had a mutual respect for each other professionally.
Right.
Whether or not they had a big fight. What else is there really to say about this movie, especially for a 1962 movie to be this disturbing?
Oh, yeah.
And carries with it that cringe horror. There's a lot of that in it, too, where it just really gets under your skin. A lot of movies these days, I think, just wish they could pull that off.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they tried remaking Whatever Happened to Betty Jane in 1991.
Betty Jane?
Baby Jane. Holy shit. I've been saying Bette Davis so many times. Somebody get me a Bette Davis shirt and a Joan Crawford shirt. I need a whole shirt of divas. But anyway. But yeah, they tried remaking Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1991 with Vanessa and Lynn Redgrave. They were sisters. It sucked really bad. I don't even suggest people watch it. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, go watch it, see what you think. No, don't watch that movie. It's terrible. It was made for TV. It's just fucking awful. And of course, the feud behind the scenes was made into the great but over dramatized, like I said, miniseries Feud with Jessica Lange as Crawford and Susan Sarandon as Davis.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's a good show, even though, they lean a little heavy into
being dramatic.
Yeah, they go over dramatized. They lean a little too much into the rumors and stuff, but it's still, I think it captures the spirit of what it was,
Right.
Because they even captured what I think was really going on, where they had the mutual respect for each other as workers, as businesswomen. In that show, John Waters has a cameo as William Castle, by the way.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
A perfect cameo for him. Now, this movie, I feel like it's mandatory viewing. It's just if you're any kind of film fan or something, I feel like you have to watch this movie. It's on that list of I gotta watch it, and it doesn't get brought up as much as say Psycho or any of the Universal horror flicks when it comes to horror, which I think that's wrong. I think this deserves its place.
If it wasn't horror, then what would it be?
I don't know. Some people like to call it a drama or a thriller. I guess to me it's a horror movie. Yeah, maybe the scares are a little worn off, but it's there.
Right.
I mean, like I said, you have 2 jump scares in this fucking movie, plus all the psychological shit.
You got a murder. You've got a beat.
You got it all here, man. It's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got fucking, you got the leprechauns in this movie. But I could suck this movie's dick till the cows come home. So I'll go ahead and end it there. But what did you think about 1962's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
I really liked it.
Yeah?
I really did. And usually, I don't like long movies, but that's okay.
This movie's about 2 hours and 13 minutes. Is that
something like that?
Long movie.
It is. But I wanted to know what happened next.
Yeah, you don't feel the runtime.
Right.
You definitely don't feel the runtime because it also has that old school way of shooting movies where it feels like a stage.
Yes.
Like a stage play.
Yes.
And I think that also helps with it because you can sit. I've talked about this before, I swear, where you can go watch a stage performance and you'll be sitting there for maybe 4 hours. But you don't feel it.
Right.
I don't know what it is. But then you watch a 4-hour movie and you're like, dear God, when is this going to end? And this has that mentality.
Of the stage play.
Yeah. You just don't feel that runtime.
Right. I really liked it. I thought the performances were awesome by all the actors, not just the stars, like all of them. And would I watch it again? Absolutely. Would I sit down and watch the whole thing? I don't know. I have a hard time sitting down and watching movies, but I really liked it. Yeah, I would suggest it. To other people, yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot, there's a lot to bite into here too. You can analyze this movie forever,
Right.
I kind of did it a little bit here and there, but like I tried to reserve my analysis. I was like, man, I went into Psycho a little too much last week.
Well, and the thing with this movie is I keep going back and forth on if this is mental illness with Jane, like keep going back and forth to this like baby thing. I don't know.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. I feel like it's definitely mental illness because, like I said, she keeps reverting back to childhood. I don't think she ever left her childhood, and but it's that definitely it's the codependency,
Right.
It's almost like what happens with couples when they're just abusive towards each other.
Yeah.
But they can't live without each other. Like one can't exist without the other. It's fucking weird.
Yeah.
And I love that in this movie. That's what gives this movie its meat,
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I think is missing when they tried to adapt it in 1991. I really hope there's no other adaptations. I don't think anyone's tried to adapt this movie again after 91.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone could pull this off anymore.
I don't think so.
It was a movie that needed Joan Crawford and Bette Davis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But man, that was fun. I'm enjoying Classics Month. Like, how are you feeling with these classic films?
I like them.
You know what's crazy? A lot of people, they don't really go back into these movies because they find them, they say they're boring. I don't understand it. You've watched quite a few classic movies now.
Right.
And granted, I haven't shown you every classic movie that I've ever seen, but
Right.
I've showed you mostly the horror movies. And how do you feel about them? Like, you feel?
I like them just fine.
I feel like some of these you've liked better than the mainstream horror movies that people find scary.
I find it refreshing to not see all the flashing lights and the glitz and glam of horror movies nowadays. And I like this simplicity of everything. The simplicity of the black and white and the performances. Like, they're not simple performances. That's not what I mean. But like, nobody has to go over the top. The killings don't have to be over the top.
And what's crazy about the black and white, like that's another thing people bring up, black and white movies is so boring. You can barely, if you make a black and white movie nowadays, you can barely get it out there. Like nobody wants to touch black and white.
Well, that's because people don't have imaginations now.
No. And that's the thing is I really do think that subdued not having colors in this movie also works for it because they could have shot this. In fact, Bette Davis was the one that talked them down. They didn't want to. She was like, I think it would make the whole performances look pathetic.
Right.
And while that sounds a little over the top and dramatic, because they always were with whatever they say, like, I do kind of agree with her. I don't think it would have the same feeling.
Right. I agree. I think it was great. I love classic movies. I do. I like them a lot.
See, I was, a big part of me, I saw more classic horror movies and classics, black and white movies or old school, whatever you want to call them, movies than I did 80s horror. A lot of 80s horror I'm just now discovering, even though some people are like, I remember this from back in the video days. Well, I remember here locally, we had OETA, the OETA movie club, and they would show all these black and white movies. That's how I know who Olivia de Havilland is or Katharine Hepburn. That's how I know all these older actresses because I would just watch them constantly.
Right.
And they would do that every Friday night. You'd have a double feature.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so that's where I saw this movie first. I saw this. I saw Dementia 13. I saw all these old school movies. And so I feel like I've more watched these than I did any of the 80s films that everybody's obsessed with nowadays.
Oh, wow.
I mean, nothing wrong. It just depends on how you were exposed.
Right. Exactly.
Like me, it's all these movies in 70s. The 70s horror, like.
And that makes sense because of your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, that's how I know John Ford and shit like that. It's wild. But yeah, again, it's funny to talk to people that find these so boring. I don't understand why. I haven't put my finger on it because like it can't, like, you can't be the black and white because everybody's obsessed with black and white all of a sudden again.
Right.
Everybody wants to see Logan in black and white or that 4-hour fucking Zack Snyder movie in black and white.
What the fuck?
And it doesn't look good because they didn't film that in black and white.
Right, exactly.
That's the thing. You got to film it for black and white. You know,
Right.
there was a certain way they did these things to make the shadows look good and make the clothing, the blacks stand out a little bit more. Because when you just slap some black and white filter over a modern movie, it just looks like a muddy mess. I don't think it looks
Right.
good at all. It's just like, it looks like it has no life.
I could see that, yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I could talk about this for ages, but we're going to go ahead and call it a day. Brittany enjoyed this. Let's see what she thinks about her second Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Oh.
So next week, we're going to be talking about Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window.
Rear Window.
My second favorite.
That sounds like a gay porn.
It really does, now that I say it out loud. I didn't think about it that way, but Rear Window is definitely a story that you're familiar with, even if you've never seen this movie.
Okay.
It has been aped so much. I think the last thing that did Rear Window was that Disturbia movie. Even though the makers of that movie claim that it's not Rear Window, it's still fucking Rear Window. Basically, guy is stuck in his house, be it with a broken leg like Jimmy Stewart is in this film, and he thinks he sees a murder, and then you unravel the mystery as you go.
I don't know that I've ever seen a movie like that.
Yeah? Oh, so you're in for a treat. This is lovely. This is one of Alfred Hitchcock's mystery thrillers. So I'm excited to see what you think about that.
I like a good mystery.
Yeah, good crime, gritty.
Nice.
And you got Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart. Clarence, that sinister kid's coming to kill me. Oh, God. So you guys are going to get like a lot of that next week.
Oh, great.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast, man.
Thank
you guys
you for
keep it
being
going.
here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. Go subscribe to the Patreon if you want more bonus shows. I'm eventually going to start rolling out more commentaries because people seem to like those.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to roll more of those out. And of course, you got our side shows on there that are regular side shows. It's fun over there.
Right.
Go check that out. Well, I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky.
And I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Bruno, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.